Our next panel is Role of the Government in Implementing the Sustainable Development Goals, Public Advocacy, Policy Dialogue and Institution Strengthening. Our keynote speaker is going to be Mr. Kamal Malhotra, United Nations Resident Coordinator in Turkey. Professor Dr. İlter Turan, Istanbul Bilgi University. He's our moderator in this panel. Our speakers are Mr. Abdurrahim Hasan Nagi, Secretary General, Federation of GCC Chambers. Jeong Tae Kim, CEO and President, Merrier Social Company, and Executive Director, Social Enterprise Network. Ms. Melissa Powell, Head of Strategy and Partnerships, United Nations Global Compact. Yilmaz Tuna, Deputy Undersecretary, Ministry of Development, Republic of Turkey. And also just a small announcement, some of our guests were asking if they can have the hard copy of the presentations. So as soon as we find out, we will let you know about that. Yes, our panel we are going to present very shortly is Role of the Governments in Implementing the Sustainable Development Goals, Public Advocacy, Policy Dialogue and Institution Strengthening. May I please kindly invite our keynote speaker, Mr. Kamal Malhotra, United Nations Resident Coordinator in Turkey, to the stage. Thank you, sir.
Sorry. Good afternoon, representatives of governments, civil society, international organizations, media, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Moderator. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you at such an important international event at this critical time in this wonderful venue. I want to congratulate the organizers for convening such a distinguished group of participants for the 6th Bosphorus Summit. The Millennium Development Goals, known as the MDGs, covering the period 2000 to 2015, were introduced to focus the world's attention on shaping a broader vision to fight poverty in its various dimensions. These encompassed 8 goals to improve the lives of people. The MDGs helped uplift more than 1 billion people out of extreme poverty and decrease the proportion of undernourished people in developing countries by around half compared to their 1990 baseline levels. It is widely agreed that the MDGs were an important catalyst in reducing poverty and hunger globally. However, there are still too many poor and undernourished people, and poverty exists in most countries. As a result of MDG implementation, there was also significant progress in achieving universal primary education, and more girls are attending school now than ever before. The primary school enrollment rate in developing countries has also exceeded or increased to 90%. Furthermore, child mortality has reduced and maternal health has improved as well. Significant improvements have also taken place with respect to many of the other goals. However, progress is uneven and there still remains much work to be done in many areas. But in any case, the MDGs provided a viable framework for action for especially the poorest countries, and they have resulted in some impressive achievements at national and international levels. This is the context in which we now talk about the new 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, agreed by a very large number of heads of state, the largest gathered at the United Nations in world history in September 2015. To follow up the progress made and to take it further, the world community has recently agreed to 17 Sustainable Development Goals with 169 targets as the new 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. The new development agenda aims to put all countries together on track towards a more prosperous, sustainable, and equitable world. Similar to the MDGs, the SDGs, as they're known, will be time-bound, with the target here being 2030. Again, as was the case with the MDGs, they will be monitored and reviewed by using a set of global indicators. The global indicator framework will be developed by a UN interagency and expert group on SDG indicators and will be confirmed by the UN Statistical Commission in March 2016. Subsequently, governments will determine their respective national indicators to monitor the achievement of the goals and targets. During the preparation of the Sustainable Development Goals, the UN system conducted the largest consultation process in its history as well as the world's history to ensure wide ownership of the goals. In this context, after the Rio +20 summit in Brazil in 2012, an open working group comprising representatives from UN member countries was authorized to create a draft set of goals to be presented to the UN General Assembly in September 2014. In addition to these official negotiations, the United Nations also hosted numerous global events, including 11 thematic and 83 national consultations, as well as an online survey called My World, which was the largest survey in the UN's history, which sought out the desired policy priority involving more than 7 million participants to inform the Open Working Group's official negotiations and preparations. It has to be emphasized that the SDGs were prepared after a 3-year-long transparent, participatory process that included all stakeholders and many ordinary people's voices. The Sustainable Development Goals are quite different from the Millennium Development Goals, not only due to their larger number, but more critically, because of their much greater ambition and universality. The Sustainable Development Goals include those on inclusive governance and growth, most importantly, for the first time on governance issues which are necessary for the achievement of peaceful and inclusive societies. Furthermore, they prioritize climate change and the way our societies produce and consume goods and services. The SDGs are universal because they call for action by all countries, rich, poor, and middle income. In the words of Ms. Helen Clark, the UNDP administrator and chair of the United Nations Development Group, and I quote, "On every continent, we see many governments and parliaments moving to plan incorporation of the SDGs into national visions, set up cross-party parliamentary groupings, and forge new partnerships within their societies around the SDGs. From this perspective, the SDGs require fundamental policy changes not only in poor and developing countries, but equally in rich and economically advanced countries. If this is done by governments and parliaments across the world, the SDGs will contribute to a universal, transformative, and integrated agenda for all of us over the next 15 years. As explicitly stated in the SDGs, millions of citizens around the world are increasingly demanding honest and responsive government. In this context, ensuring democratic governance, peace and security, promoting the rule of law at all levels, reducing corruption and bribery substantially, strengthening institutional capacity through ensuring effectiveness, accountability, and transparency are a few of the issues highlighted in the 2030 Development Agenda. It has to be noted that sustainable development cannot and will not be achieved without peaceful and inclusive societies, and hence the new goal specifically highlighting its strategic importance. Ladies and gentlemen, with the approval of the SDGs by 193 countries, there appears to be strong commitment to their implementation. The new goals and targets will be effective on January 1st, 2016 and will guide all nations over the next 15 years. The 2030 Agenda will be implemented within the constraint of each country's own national priorities, capacities, and development levels. In this regard, national policies and priorities for sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth will be respected as long as they are consistent with international rules and commitments. It will also be important to strengthen regional and sub-regional dimensions, regional economic integration, as well as regional interconnectivity to help facilitate sustainable development at the national level. In terms of sustainable development, clearly each country has its own particular challenges. Therefore, national development plans should prioritize necessary policies with respect to each country's specific situation and circumstances and constraints. But most importantly, national policies need to be consistent with international commitments and should facilitate the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and targets over the next 15 years. In this context, it will be vital for governments to commit to certain policy outcomes in order to achieve the SDGs and their targets. Hence, coordination amongst relevant government agencies for this purpose will be a critical issue and will need to be managed effectively and efficiently. To help ensure this, all governments will need to establish an interagency or intergovernmental coordination mechanism specifically to advance policies to achieve the 2030 Development Agenda. Such a mechanism should be centered in presidencies, prime ministries, or ministries of development, perhaps in the case of Turkey, as the specific country context dictates and demands. Such an intergovernmental coordination mechanism should also have the authority to both demand and coordinate the contribution of line ministries and other bodies in a manner which is both coherent and consistent with the targets and goals of the new 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. The 2030 Agenda should be implemented in solidarity with the poorest, favoring people in vulnerable circumstances. It is the task of governments to both advocate for and to ensure this. The new agenda should bring governments, the private sector, civil society, and the UN system together to mobilize all available resources. In this process, the leadership and mobilizing roles of both national governments and regional and local authorities will be essential. Sub-regional institutions, international institutions, and the private sector, ranging from micro-enterprises to multinational corporations, civil society organizations, philanthropic institutions, and volunteers will all have to be mobilized, and the responsibility and accountability of each such institution in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda will need to be both clarified and ensured at a national level. Distinguished participants, implementing the 2030 Agenda is critical. Governments have high expectations regarding the support that they can receive from the United Nations Development System in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. In this context, the UN Development Group has developed a common approach for its implementation, which is called MAPS. MAPS stands for Mainstreaming, Acceleration, and Policy Support. Regarding mainstreaming, the proposed approach provides significant support to governments to incorporate the SDG agenda into their national and local plans and strategies and budgets. With respect to acceleration, the experiences with the MDGs can help define the obstacles and the blockages on the way to making progress on goals and targets, and identify actions necessary to simultaneously speed up progress on multiple targets. Policy support can be provided by using the accumulated knowledge in the rich repository of past experiences of the United Nations system and other agencies. Consequently, MAPS can be applied according to the particular development context and challenges faced by each country, including those that are more developed, in transition, or in crisis. Across its three components, partnership should be enhanced, data quality should be improved, and accountability should be deepened. Continuing advocacy will also be critical to the success of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. In this context, a dynamic campaign for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals in every country will be launched by the United Nations to bring stakeholders together to support implementation, including through citizen-driven processes to track progress. We believe that this approach will be a useful guide for all stakeholders pursuing sustainable development in different development contexts, and of course the role of governments in support of this will be critical. Distinguished guests, the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, adopted by 193 countries, all the member states of the United Nations, applies equally to all of them, regardless of their level of development. It has laid out a powerful vision for the world we want to see by 2030, and the member states have agreed that transformational change is needed in countries at all income levels. In other words, it has a universal, integrated, and transformative vision and potential to improve the lives of millions of people in the world. The new agenda seeks to address significant challenges ranging from widespread poverty, rising inequalities, including enormous inequality of opportunity, wealth, and power, to environmental risks due to climate change. The implementation of the Sustainable Development Agenda will need to be supported by the commitments made at the 3rd International Conference on Financing for Development, which was held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, between the 13th and 16th of July 2015. In the Addis Ababa Action Plan, it is explicitly stated that sustainable development will be fulfilled through promoting inclusive economic growth, protecting the environment, and promoting social inclusion. Similarly, it is expected that the SDGs will also both positively influence the final negotiations this week towards a new, meaningful, and universal agreement on climate change at the ongoing Conference of Parties in Paris, the COP21, this week, as well as build on the agreement reached there. Allow me to end by congratulating UNDP's International Center in Istanbul for the Private Sector and Development and the International Cooperation Platform for generously hosting this event and for inviting me to participate in it and give this broad overview. I hope that this event can produce concrete outcomes for both the future of international cooperation and the achievement of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, so that the world can eradicate poverty, something which is within the reach of our generation for the first time in world history, as well as to improve the overall health and well-being of nations and their peoples in a more balanced and sustainable manner by 2030. Thank you, and I wish the conference every success. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Kemal. I'm sorry to announce that because of the delays in our program, Mr. Mohapatra has to leave, but we do have a very lively panel to follow. Of course, we have a problem usually in a conference as the day progresses and people are exposed to more and more presentations. There's a certain sense of being fed too much information. That doesn't mean that there is no need for feeding more information, but the intake capabilities of human beings are rather limited. So we have to compensate for that by essentially making sharp, brief, to-the-point remarks to pep up the audience and to make them see that even at this late hour of the, shall I say late afternoon or early evening, we still have important things to say. The name of our panel, as you see in your programs, is the role of governments in implementing sustainable development goals, public advocacy, policy dialogue, and institution strengthening. I need not introduce to you the members of the panel. Their names appear on the program. I'll just, as I go directing questions to the members of the panel, of course, address them by their names. And we're fortunate because they all represent very, very different things. The first person to address a question from my perspective is Jong-tae Kim. Did I pronounce that right? All right, very good. And he's the CEO and president of Merry Year Social Company and also the executive director of Social Enterprises Network. And I think you will have to clarify this concept of social enterprises. So let me ask you, what is the role of social enterprise in the field of sustainable development goals? And does the government have a role, and if so, what is the role of the government in essentially supporting this system of social enterprises? And then we might continue. If the answer is short and snappy, I'll ask you another question, all right?
I'm really, really sorry to interrupt, but before you start answering the questions, may I please ask Mr. İlter Turan to present a plaque of honor to Mr. Kamal Malhotra? Then we are going to carry on from there, okay?
I hope you didn't explain.
Thank you. Thank you to Professor Dr. İlter Turan and our keynote speaker Kamal Malhotra. And I'm really sorry to interrupt. You may carry on now. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the organizer to invite me to this really important summit, especially on the role of the government. And since I'm not in the public sector domain, actually I came from the private sector, but I also used to work for the United Nations for 5 years. So I think I have some credibility to talk about the SDG issues from the perspective of private sectors. And the moderator asked me to clarify what social enterprises are, and let me start with that definition. So social enterprises are enterprises that produce not only financial returns, but also social impact. So many experts said social enterprises are the future business style that we'll all experience for the 10 years to come. And in terms of sustainable development goals, I think the enterprises taking on these challenges, they actually take form of these social enterprises. And the agenda that we are now talking about is the role of government. So what is the relationship between the role of government and the role of social enterprises that I am specialized in? So let me talk about the Korean experiences. Korea, we started Social Enterprise Act in 2007. So that was the beginning of the Korean government taking on social enterprise approaches to social issues and development issues as well. So for the last 8 years, with that Social Enterprise Act in Korea, we have more than 1,700 certified social enterprises in Korea, addressing social issues like unemployment, inequality, so many issues that we are facing in Korea. And with these certified social enterprises, we have also so many other semi-certified social enterprises in Korea. They're actually numbering more than 7,000 semi-certified social enterprises. And they're actually offering innovative and creative services and products to areas that have never been regarded as business areas in Korea so far. And in terms of this very interesting movement, there's a certain role of governments providing the overall atmosphere where social enterprises can be identified and they actually have an access to the needed infrastructure and the legal services and policies as well. Since if we think about the role of private sector in terms of their engagement for development, we often think about the big companies because they have resources, because also they have all the infrastructure, they have all the talents, which is true. So we have UN Global Compact, so we have all the big companies, they also are interested in their role to development as well. But there's another concept called small is beautiful. In terms of complexity, in terms of this new set of challenges, sometimes not the big, but the small companies, like social enterprises, actually they are quick to identify business opportunities. Since they are so small, they are bold enough to identify what the business can do for sustainable development goals. And let me talk about 2 examples to support my proposition. In Korea, we have a social enterprise called Ever Young Korea, and they are now taking on senior issues. Aging society, this is actually a big issue, big challenge in Korea. And they are now hiring over 500 seniors aged over 65. And they are actually offering jobs to seniors with tasks that normally requires patience and concentration, which the young people doesn't have to actually. And 500 senior people, they are now working on mobile and digital tasks. And this company called Ever Young Korea is now pioneering the new concepts, new business models as to the senior issues. So they are actually directly contributing SDG number 8, which is decent work and economic growth. And this is just one of the examples. And the other company I'd like to talk about is Baimam. This is another social enterprise in Korea. And what they are manufacturing is the small room tent, the tent that you can install inside the room. Actually, they designed this product for the energy poverty people in Korea. So they don't need to, have a heater, since the room tent installed inside the room will provide up to 7 Celsius degree temperature, so that they don't need to actually, they can save the energy. Now they are contributing directly to SDG number 7 and 11 as to affordable and clean energy issues as well. And they are now partnering with big companies called Eden Group, the #1 fashion company in Korea. They are now also go to China market. Since China, they have much bigger issues as well. So you see the logic here. The small enterprises, they are so quick, they are so capable of identifying how some specific development issue could be translated into business opportunities. So they make a business case. And for that, there's a specific role of the government, providing necessary policies, providing necessary required initial early stage investment as well. And once everything is in place, they can now move on to partnering with United Nations, the big companies, so that the business model can be consolidated. So this is the interesting concept and business model case that we've been observing, not only in Korea, but also across Asia, but also across the world as well. So from the perspective of small enterprises, I think there's a strong role that government can do, and actually government only can do in terms of leveling the playing field, also offering the basic legal services infrastructures as well. So I'm gonna welcome all the comments and questions, and I'm happy to respond to that. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It seems that you have a proclivity for small companies. Is your company a small one?
We are a small consulting firm, but we consult with big companies like Samsung and Hyundai.
All right. Well, I think that was very interesting. In fact, okay. That's very interesting. Thank you very much. Now, of course, small companies are one of the major actors in this enterprise. We have national governments, but then we have international government, so to speak, in this affair. So we have essentially Melissa Powell from the United Nations, and she's the head of strategy and partnerships of the United Nations Global Compact. And in your speech, you have been referring on many occasions to the fact that the governments are an important actor in this. So, Melissa, let me turn to you and say, what sort of role do you see for governments in essentially leading the way to achieving sustainable development goals? I mean, obviously, we have the small enterprises, although you know, it wasn't elaborated upon. I presume big enterprises have their own contribution to make also. And from your perspective, how can governments lead the way, and how can businesses make a contribution to the UN goals?
Thank you very much. Thanks very much. Well, I'd first like to thank the organizers for having me, the International Cooperation Platform, and of course the Istanbul International Center for Private Sector and Development. I think this conversation is really timely. As you've heard, the Sustainable Development Goals were just launched in September by governments from around the world, and now we're already talking about how can we actually implement these goals. And I think as we've heard from earlier sessions earlier today, clearly governments can't do it alone. They need to work closely with the private sector, with civil society, and with other stakeholders. And as you've heard, one of the most interesting aspects of the Sustainable Development Goals is that businesses and citizens and civil society were involved in the process of developing those goals, which is quite unique. I mean, governments didn't just cook them up in the basement of the UN. They actually really engaged business like never before. In engaging business, they wanted to ensure the buy-in because they recognized that business was going to be critical in order for them to actually be implemented. So I think this is really timely that we're already having a conversation around the how of implementation. And in my remarks, I want to highlight a little bit from my perspective, coming from the United Nations Global Compact. It's the world's largest global corporate citizenship initiative. We have over 8,500 companies from 135 countries around the world. We do have a lot of the large multinationals, but half of our business participants in the compact are also small and medium-sized enterprises from developing countries. So we're really not just talking about the big guys of the world, we're also talking about small and medium-sized businesses that are really driving economic growth around the world. And how can we ensure that those companies are being responsible in the way that they're living up to their commitment to not only the Global Compact, but also as a global citizen of the world. So my views are going to highlight a little bit about the why and how that I think it's so important for business to engage together with governments if we actually are going to really achieve some of these objectives and some of these pressing global challenges, which have been with us for obviously a long time. So although governments clearly have responsibility to lead the way by setting national implementation plans, by taking action to prepare the enabling environment, as we've heard from the other speaker, and informing citizens about the importance of this agenda, among a range of other actions that governments need to take, clearly business will be a really indispensable partner. And there's an interesting quote that I wanted to share with you that actually comes from the 2030 agenda, just to illustrate the fact that this really is different for governments to so strongly recognize the role of business. And included in the agenda, they mention specifically that private business activity, investment, and innovation are major drivers of productivity, inclusive economic growth, and job creation. We acknowledge the diversity of the private sector, ranging from micro enterprises to cooperatives to multinationals, and we call on all businesses to apply their creativity and innovation to solving sustainable development challenges. So there's a clear call from the United Nations and from the Secretary General for businesses around the world to step up and use their innovation and creativity to help solve some of these challenges. So it's clear businesses have an important role to play, but why are these sustainable development goals even important for business? I think there's three key ways that successful implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals are going to be as important for business as implementation is for governments. And the first reason is to improve the enabling environment by supporting key pillars of business success, whether that's transparent and accountable institutions, education, health, even the most responsible, well-managed business are challenged to thrive in communities that are marked by instability or to find skilled labor where inadequate education exists, or to withstand natural disasters that are stemming from climate change. So this is the first reason. Secondly, I think successful implementation is critical for business because it can actually help to enhance the business case for responsible business practices around the world. And strengthening sustainability, strengthening the incentives for companies to actually use resources more efficiently and more effectively. And finally, and I think most importantly, what's important about the Sustainable Development Goals is it provides a universal framework for stakeholder engagement. It gives governments, it gives the private sector, it gives civil society a common universal reference point and a common language to then be able to discuss targets, indicators, and to form the basis for cross-sectoral partnerships. So I think it's really important to have the SDGs as a reference point to deepen the engagement of business in collaboration with governments and other stakeholders. So from our perspective, there's really two key ways that business can contribute. And the first and the foundation for any company that wants to advance the Sustainable Development Goals is first, be a responsible business. Make sure that the way you treat your workers, that you're not polluting the environment, that you're not engaging in corruption. Make sure that you're living up to responsible business practices and you're not making the world's problems worse before you try to start making them better. So really looking at how to minimize any negative impacts that your company might have, and making sure that you look at establishing a culture of integrity within your business and making sure that your operations in all areas of the world are the same as your operations in your home country. So that's the first and the foundational way that I think companies can advance the Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, that foundation is based on the Global Compact and the 10 principles of the Global Compact in the areas of human rights, labor, the environment, and anti-corruption. And by joining the Global Compact, companies are able to demonstrate their commitment to these universal values and principles, and our office works with them to advance those into their day-to-day strategies and operations and practices around the world. So that's the foundation. But then the second and an important way companies can contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals is by seizing opportunities. Clearly all of the SDGs may not be relevant for every business. And the Global Compact is actually supporting companies to conduct an assessment of their impacts, their risks, and to actually be able to support companies to determine where they most strategically can contribute when it comes to advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. Global challenges, whether it's climate change or water, poverty, all of these challenges can also be viewed as business opportunities. And as we've heard, I think the opportunity for business innovation is really critical here. And this is where you're hearing about inclusive business opportunities. We've heard a number of examples from the business call to action already today. And I think this is really a unique feature of seeing how companies, through their core business, can really make a contribution to the SDGs while making profit at the same time. And that's critical. So through the various issue platforms of the Global Compact, whether it's caring for climate or whether it's business for peace, we have a range of different thematic areas where companies can work closely with our office to advance policies and practices, to engage in partnerships on each of the different SDG areas based on their own company's strategies and operations. We also have over 80 Global Compact local networks around the world. So we also have one here in Turkey. Local networks are opportunities for the companies in the Global Compact to engage locally and to really work more closely with governments and civil society to identify local priorities where they can have a role to play and then to actually implement. So really the local networks of the Global Compact bring this initiative to life. And of course, I would encourage all companies here today to join the Global Compact as a starting point if you haven't already. I just want to end by mentioning specifically one flagship resource that the Global Compact recently launched together with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development and the Global Reporting Initiative. Now, as you've heard from a number of speakers today, clearly the Sustainable Development Goals are important, but we recognized pretty quickly that it was going to be difficult to engage companies without giving them a reference point and almost like a guidance to help them understand the Sustainable Development Goals and to help them connect their business to the SDGs. So we launched something we call the SDG Compass. And it's available online. It's an online tool that anyone can use. And it highlights 5 steps to implementation that I think all companies should take a look at. And governments, I think, could also learn and maybe use this process as well. The first is really just about understanding the SDGs. The second looks at supporting a company to define their priorities. So looking at what are the risks, how can you assess what the risks are to your business, both positive and negative, and look at it really across your whole value chain as a company. The third is to support companies in setting goals. We know that if you don't set goals and have KPIs and measurements, that it's very difficult then to measure progress. So this is an important aspect. The fourth is integrating it into your day-to-day business. So looking at how you can develop targets across all functions of the company is obviously going to be key to then reporting on your progress. And that is indeed the 5th step in the SDG Compass, which is looking at reporting and communicating progress. And I think this reporting piece is also really important because as companies begin to measure their own impact on the SDGs and report on that in their annual reports. For example, the Global Compact has an annual reporting requirement called the Communication on Progress that companies all report on their progress. Governments over time will also be able to use this data in helping their own countries to look at how they're measuring their country's progress on the Sustainable Development Goals. So I think over time, the data that stems from companies also reporting against the SDG framework will also be helpful universally to all of us. So I think with that, I'll leave it there, but I hope that I've given you a good explanation of why and how I think business can be such a critical partner to governments in implementing the Sustainable Development Goals, the value of inclusive business, and really looking at how we can better leverage the core competencies of businesses to work together with governments to really achieve a better world for all of us. Thanks for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Melissa. I actually have a number of questions to ask you, but I'll first proceed to the next speaker, and then we can have a discussion afterwards. Now I'm going to switch languages myself. Efendim, bundan sonraki konuşmacımız Kalkınma Bakanlığı Müsteşar Yardımcısı Sayın Yılmaz Tuna. Sayın Tuna, siz tabii diğer konuşmacılarımızdan farklı olarak devleti temsil ediyorsunuz diyelim isterseniz. Önümüzdeki 15 yıl içerisinde hükümetlerin politika geliştirme sürecinde sürdürülebilir kalkınma hedeflerinin rolü ne olacaktır? Etkisi ne olacaktır? Bunun siyasal yapımına, özel sektöre nasıl bir rol düşecektir? Hükümetler özel sektörün rolünü ne şekilde destekleyebilir? Yani diğer dostlarımızın da cevaplamaya çalıştıkları soruları size de tevcih etmiş oldum. Ama siz de bir bürokrat perspektifinden, bir kamu hizmetkarı perspektifinden belki konuya yaklaşacaksınız.
Teşekkür ediyorum. Burada tabii hükümeti temsil eden tek kişi benim panelistler arasında. Dolayısıyla bu sorular önemli sorular. Ben hızla görüşlerimi şöylece paylaşmaya çalışayım. Bildiğiniz gibi sürdürülebilir kalkınma hedefleri, Millennium Development Goals'in 1000 yıl kalkınma hedeflerinin bir devamı ve aynı zamanda eksik kalan işlerin tamamlanması amacıyla oluşturulan bir hedefler seti. Ve 1000 yıl kalkınma hedeflerine göre oldukça kapsamlı. Aynı zamanda oldukça katılımcı bir süreçle, çok geniş bir katılım süreciyle bu hedefler, bu gündem oluşturuldu. Benden önceki konuşmacılar, özellikle Sayın Malhotra ifade etti. Onlarca, yüzlerce açık çalışma grubu toplantıları, değişik sivil toplum, özel sektör katılımları, aynı zamanda bölgesel, yerel toplantılar, online tartışmalar. Dolayısıyla oldukça kapsamlı bir gündem önümüzde. Bu gündemin tabii içeriğine baktığımızda detay söylemeyeceğim ama özellikle fakirlikle mücadele, eğitime erişim, sağlığa erişim, istihdam, çevre, konut gibi doğrudan insanların günlük hayatını etkileyen temel kamu hizmetlerinin sağlanmasını hedefleyen bir gündem olduğu için bizatihi kendisi oldukça önem arz eden bir gündem. Ve bu aslında bütün ülkelerin, hükümetlerin temel görevi, yapması gereken temel görev birazcık uluslararası bir ajanda altında ve daha koordineli, daha takip edilebilir bir süreç tanımı yapıldı. Dolayısıyla gündemin bizatihi kendisi oldukça önem arz ediyor. Yine Sayın Malhotra değindi. 1000 yıl kalkınma hedeflerine göre SDG'nin bir diğer ayrıcı özelliği iyi yönetişim gibi, şeffaflık gibi, hesap verilebilirlik gibi hükümetleri takip eden bir boyutu da var. Dolayısıyla iyi yönetim ve hukuk, tabii bunun hukuki altyapısı ülkeleri bu manada da takip edebilecek, kendisini raporlayabilecek bir gündem. O itibarla oldukça önemli bir gündem ve bu gündemin zaten önemine binaen bildiğiniz gibi dönem başkanlığını Türkiye'nin yürüttüğü G20 sürecinde kapsayıcı büyüme gibi bir inisiyatifte bütün liderler tarafından kabul edildi ve zannediyorum bundan sonraki süreci sürdürecek olan Çin hükümeti de bu gündemi sahiplenip ve devam edeceğini ifade etti. Dolayısıyla burada ciddi bir politik destek var. Devlet başkanları düzeyinde, 200'e yakın devlet başkanları düzeyinde kabul edilmiş bir gündem var ve bu ciddi bir sahiplik getiriyor. Aynı zamanda hayata geçirileceğine ilişkin güçlü bir taahhüt anlamına geliyor. Aynı zamanda kamu ve dışında sivil toplum ve benden önce ifade edildiği gibi sivil toplum ve özel sektörün süreç içinde yer alması da bu sürecin bütün kesimler tarafından sahiplendiği ve takip edileceğini baştan zaten farkında olarak bu süreci başlatmış oluyoruz. Yine bu sürdürülebilir kalkınma gündeminin önemli ayrıcı özelliğinden bir tanesi de iyi bir izleme sisteminin tesis edilmesini öngörmesi. Bu belki MDG'nin bir zayıf tarafıydı. Raporlama birazcık daha istekli ya da gönüllü bir yapıdayken sürdürülebilir kalkınmada hem BM düzeyinde hem bölgesel düzeyde hem de ülkeler düzeyinde iyi bir izleme sisteminin oluşturulması ve raporlamasını dile getiriyor. Dolayısıyla bu ülkelerin kendisini bir yerde belli periyotlarda boy aynasında görmesini sağlayacak. Bu aynı zamanda uluslararası arenada ülkelerin ne kadar başarılı olduğunu, bu hedeflere ne kadar sahip olduğunu ve politika süreçlerine dahil ettiğini gösterecek bir boyut olduğu için eminim ki bu yeni dönemde özellikle bu izleme sistemi sürdürülebilir kalkınma gündeminin hükümet politikalarına, bütçeleme süreçlerine etki edeceğini düşünüyorum. Bir diğer belki yine SDG'nin güçlü tarafı ve bunun uygulanabilmesine umut doğuran tarafı 4 yıllık gelişme raporlarının hazırlanacak olması ve bunun BM düzeyinde yüksek düzeyli siyasi forumda değerlendirilecek olması. Bu az evvel ifade ettiğim üçlü izleme sisteminin ötesinde aslında ülkelerin bir yerde karnesinin uluslararası arenada bir sıralamasının yapılarak ilan edilmesi anlamına geliyor. Bence bu mekanizma iyi çalıştırılabilirse sürdürülebilir kalkınma gündeminin hükümet programlarında, politikalarında, bütçelerinde yer almasını o kadar daha fazla sağlama imkanı olabilir. Çünkü bu bir 1000 yıl insani kalkınma raporundaki endeksleme benzeri bir görünüm arz edecektir diye düşünüyorum. Diğer bir husus, sürdürülebilir kalkınma gündeminin hükümet politikalarına yansımasını belki katalizör rol oynayacak tarafı son hedef, 17. hedef. Bu yine 1000 yıl kalkınma hedeflerinin belki eksik bir tarafından yola çıkarak oluşturulmuş önemli bir hedef. Uygulama araçları. Bu tartışmalarda, hazırlık aşamalarında oldukça üzerinde durulan ve birçok ülkenin önemli kuruluşların dile getirdiği bir öneriydi. Ve bu 17. hedef olarak bildiğiniz gibi kabul gördü. Bunun içinde neler var? Teknik yardım destekleri, kapasite geliştirmeye destekleri, teknik yardım destekleri, sivil toplum, özel kamu ortaklıklarını geliştirme inisiyatifleri, küresel ortaklıklar, az evvel ifade ettiği Bayan Paul, Global Compact gibi ciddi bir şekilde kapasite geliştirme destekleri, rehberlik araçlarını geliştiren mekanizmalar tasarlandı. Benzer şekilde bilgi paylaşımı ve teknolojik destek, finansman desteği. Dolayısıyla bu 17. hedefin bizatihi kendisi bence sürdürülebilir kalkınma gündeminin hükümet politikalarına, bütçelerine yansıma sürecinin bir yerde zorlayıcı bir enstrümanı olarak ortaya çıkacak diye düşünüyorum. Öte yandan belki şunu da ifade etmek lazım. Dünyamız artık giderek küreselleşiyor. Aslında EMDG süreci beraber çalışma kültürünü birazcık ülkelere öğretti. Çünkü ortak bir gündemi takip etmeye herkes konsantre oldu ama yeni yapıyla birlikte bu küreselleşmenin, gelişen kitle iletişim araçlarının ülkelerin SDG'deki başarısını raporlanması ve bunun iletişim araçlarıyla herkese açık, şeffaf bir şekilde raporlanacak olması bence hani kelebek etkisi diyebileceğimiz bir yapıyla ülkelerin sivil toplum unsurlarının sektörleriyle ve diğer örgütlerle birlikte bunun takibini eğer bir yerde başarılabiliyorsa dünyanın başka bir yerine neden başarılmasın? Ciddi bir toplumsal baskıyla hükümetlerin bu gündeme daha da sahiplenmesi, bu temel insan hakları, temel kamu hizmetlerine daha yaygın bir şekilde erişimin önünü açacak diye düşünüyorum. Sorunuzun ikinci kısmına gelecek olursak, özel sektöre burada nasıl bir rol düşer? Aslında benden önce konuşmacı birazcık bunu aştı ama özellikle burada ifade ettiğim gibi ortak çalışmanın önemi zaten bu SDG sürecinin temel ortak paydasıydı. Ve bunun bir yansıması olarak da özellikle kamu özel ortaklığı modelleri ki bu zaten SDG gündemden bağımsız bir şekilde ülkelerin temel kamu hizmetlerini sağlamakta eğitim, sağlık gibi altyapı yatırımlarını ya da enerji ya da konut gibi altyapı yatırımlarına kamunun kısıtlı bütçeleriyle baş edilemeyecek büyüklükteki imkanların özel sektörün de sürece dahil ederek hem finansman hem de inovatif yönetim becerileriyle birlikte kamuyla beraber hem kazanarak hem kar elde ederek ama aynı zamanda da kamuya yönelik bu sürdürülebilir kalkınma gündemindeki temel bu başlıkların hayata geçmesinde de önemli inisiyatifler olacağı diye düşünüyorum. Elbette sosyal sorumluluk gibi, hayırseverlik gibi, bağış gibi unsurlar bunlar zaten öteden beri geleneksel yöntemler ama özellikle kamu özel yatırım ortaklığı gibi ciddi kar motivasyonunda olan yapılar bence daha da gelişmeye muhtaç ve daha da geliştirilmesi lazım. Öte yandan yine Sayın Malhotra bahsetti. 2011 yılında Türkiye'nin de ciddi finansal desteğiyle oluşturulan İstanbul Özel Sektör Merkezi, kısaca ifade ettiğimiz. Burada özellikle az evvel bahsettiğim kamunun yetişmekte hem finansal olarak hem yönetim becerisi olarak zorlandığı hususlarda özel sektörün geliştirilen bir takım modellerle sürece dahil olması, işte kapsayıcı iş modelleri dediğimiz giderek artık daha çok konuşmaya başladığımız modeller ve beceri geliştirme gibi özel sektörün hayırseverlik ya da sosyal sorumluluk gibi ifade edeceği görevlerin dışında aslında kendi iş faaliyetlerinin bir parçası olarak aynı zamanda kazanarak topluma hizmet etmesini sağlayan modeller. Burada özellikle küçük işletmeler, kırsal kesimdeki yoksul insanlar, üretim becerisi, bilgi ve kapasite becerisi düşük olan insanların yine özel sektör tarafından üretim ve değer zincirinin bir parçası haline getirilmesi. Hem kazanmak hem de onları da sürecin bir parçası yaparak onların da kazanmasını, böylece yoksullukla mücadelede ve diğer temel kamu hizmetlerine erişimde önemli bir enstrüman. Bu enstrüman dediğim gibi İstanbul Özel Sektör Merkezi henüz yeni kuruldu. İşin başında ciddi bir şekilde burada tabii hem ülkelerin hem de özel sektörün desteğine ihtiyacımız var. Dün de bunun yönetim kurulu toplantısını yaptık. Burada Bay Kim de bizim danışma kurulu üyesi. Önemli görüşler dün serdedildi. İnşallah yeni dönemde UNDP ile beraber bu alandaki inisiyatifi daha da geliştirmeyi umuyoruz. Belki hızla vaktimi çok aştım zannediyorum ama özel sektörün bu alana daha çok girmesini sağlamak adına Bay Kim de ifade etti ya da Bayan Paul ifade etti, karıştırıyor olabilirim. Özellikle KOBİ destekleri, vergisel destekler, teşvikler, mikro kredi gibi unsurlarla yerel girişimciliği artırmak lazım. Bu da tabii vergi ve teşvik dışındaki unsurların dışında aynı zamanda politika oluşturma süreçlerine bunların aktif katılması, bu kesimlerin ve sahipliğinin artırılması diye ben kısaca bunları arz etmek isterim. Teşekkür ediyorum.
Well, thank you very much. When I listen to these commentaries, I get rather encouraged that we're headed in the right direction. But unfortunately, I'm an academic and a political scientist at that. So as an academic, I retain a healthy amount of skepticism about these declarations. And also as a political scientist, I always play around with the concept of power and power relationships. So Kim, let me ask you, I mean, here you are a very nice guy, your social enterprises are your line of work. Have you had any resistance and unfriendly approaches from corporations that have tried to suppress you? Have you had some negative feedback from the government on sometimes? How goes it?
Frankly speaking, 5 years ago, the situation was really bad, so that even the government or the big companies, corporations, they are not actually interested in partnering with, small and medium-sized companies, so-called, social enterprises. But it was like last year that we see lots of requests coming from the big companies in Korea, asking about how they can come up with social enterprise business models. So here comes a very interesting concept. So they don't see social enterprise as a form of entities. They see it as part of their innovative business models as to how they can develop new markets and as to how they can translate SDGs into business ideas. So they are now with that, all the concepts, they are clear about it, and then they ask about what and how they can actually embark on their own initiatives. So this is really a phenomenon, I would say, in Korea, but also in Asian countries as well.
All right, thank you very much. Melissa, let me turn to you. I mean, one aspect of human behavior is what one might call a herd instinct. I mean, you refer to a large number of organizations or corporations that you work with. Are some of them, possibly many of them, simply not joining the crowd rather than meaning to do anything serious about these sustainable development goals?
Yeah, there's definitely, I would say, leaders and kind of new beginners as part of the Global Compact. So there's people at different stages of, I would say, a sustainability journey. So we do have companies that are far more advanced, where we also have companies that are just starting and maybe haven't developed their policies or practices in any real way, but join with a view to doing so. When it comes to sort of the credibility standpoint, we do have an annual reporting requirement of the Global Compact, so a company can't just join the initiative and then not do anything. If they fail to report on their progress on an annual basis, then we do remove them from the initiative. So there is a way of making sure that we have that level of engagement of businesses coming from the CEO, which we feel is really important, that leadership component.
Thank you. Yılmaz Bey, size de bir şey sorayım. Şimdi bu böyle bir takım prensiplerden bahsediyoruz. Şeffaflık, hesap verilebilirlik falan gibi, hatta yozlaşmaya karşı direnç. Tabii hükümetler bunları gerçekleştirmekle yükümlü ama böyle kavramları seviyorlar mı hükümetler bu kadar?
Evet, tabii hükümetler bunu giderek yapmak zorunda olduklarının farkındalar. Hepinizin bildiği gibi salondakilerin birçoğu bunu yaşadı. Özellikle Türkiye'den katılımcılar çok iyi bilir. Türkiye bu sürece önemli bir örnek. 2000 yılına kadar ya da ondan önceki birkaç kriz yaşadık biliyorsunuz. Ciddi ekonomik krizler yaşadık. Bu krizler bize şunu öğretti. Eğer siz özel sektöre, topluma açık ve şeffaf davranmasanız bir yerde araba duvara tosluyor. Dolayısıyla sadece hükümetin yapabileceği ya da belli bir süre için yapabileceği işler çok sınırlı. Bunu toplumun bütün kesimleriyle kapsamlı bir şekilde sürdürebilmek, zaten konumuzda sürdürülebilir kalkınma, sürdürülebilir bir şekilde ekonomik kalkınmayı gerçekleştirebilmek için topluma karşı açık ve şeffaf olmanız lazım, güven oluşturmanız lazım. Ve nitekim 2000 yılında Türkiye açısından bu önemli bir deneyim oldu. Bildiğiniz gibi kamu mali yönetim sistemini baştan aşağı değiştirdi. Sürekli raporlamaya, hesap verebilmeye ve bilgi edinme hakkı gibi isteyen herkes bir konuda bilgilenmek için kamudan bilgi talep edebilme hakkını sağladı. Dolayısıyla bu bence küresel bir eğilim. Birçok ülkede aslında benzer şekilde bunlar yaşanıyor. O itibarla önümüzdeki süreçte de özellikle az evvel bahsettiğim, birinci aşamadaki konuşmadan bahsettiğim gibi sürdürülebilir kalkınma gibi toplumun bütün kesimlerini, özellikle en geniş kesimini, orta direk veya altı kesimi yansıtan topluma yönelik bu hedefleri gerçekleştirmek için ciddi bir sahiplik ve takiple bu izleme, değerlendirme süreci bence hükümetleri daha da çok hesap verebilme, daha çok şeffaf davranmaya zorlayacaktır diye düşünüyorum.
Efendim çok teşekkür ederim. Well, ladies and gentlemen, actually I have quite a number of other questions to ask, but I am informed that the next panel is impatiently waiting for us to conclude our session. So in order to sort of hasten the implementation of the program, let me just thank each and every one of you for the wonderful contributions you have made. I think you have not only informed us, but planted questions also in our minds. So thank you so much for having taken the trouble to have come here. I guess you're from the United States, you're from Korea, and of course you must be from Ankara. Well, it's a distant place from Istanbul too, you know, mentally sometimes. So, thank you very much, and I'd like to thank you all for your wonderful contributions.
Professor, we can take one or two more questions if you have time. We can take one or two questions.
Oh, from the
Yeah, absolutely. One or two questions. After that, I'm going to ask you to wrap it up.
From the floor.
Yeah, if anyone wants to ask any questions from the crowd, or if you have any questions.
It seems that I can't see the floor very well, but I think they're ready to make the change. So why don't we just proceed, all right?
Perfect, no problem. Thank you very much to our speakers and moderator. May I please kindly invite Mr. Abdul Ilah Al-Sadam, member of the Executive Committee of Turkish-Arab Dialogue Platform, to present a plug of honor to our speakers and our moderator. Can I please keep you on the stage 2 minutes to present your plug of honors? Thank you. Size verilecek. Size veriyorlar. Mr. Abdul Ilah Al-Sadam, member of the Executive Committee of Turkish-Arab Dialogue Platform, is presenting Mr. Dr. İlter Turan his honor flag. Thank you. Bir fotoğrafınızı alalım. Bu tarafa. This is for our second speaker.